Hi, in this video we're going to continue on working with this console app called Calculator. Now Microsoft has provided us some C# tutorials, and that's what we're going to follow here. So we created a Hello World app, and I'm going to move down a little ways until we get to some new code. So this is where we're going to start here in programming. So in our previous video, we created all this Hello World stuff, and I'm going to simply select it all and press the delete key, and we're going to start some new code. So it says here, type this code here. So I could just select it all, or if I just click the copy button, I believe, it will copy all 5 lines. So I've copied that. I'm switching back into my Visual Studio, and I'm going to press Control V for paste. You could also right click, and there should be a paste option as well. So either one, if you like to paste with Control V or use your mouse, you can. So I don't want this twice, so I'm going to just delete it. Now what's this going to do for me? So this is an example of adding integers. So this A, this B, and this C all are variable names. So variables are words like you do in algebra class. So A is a variable that has the variable value of 42. It's called a variable because you can change it. So if I don't like 42, I'm going to change it to 420, and it'll still work. Now the int part at the beginning tells us what type of variable it is. So int stands for integer. You can make integers, you can make floating point numbers, which are decimals, you can make strings of letters. There's lots of different types of variables. But we're only going to look at integers for right now. So we have 3 integers. We have A, B, and C. And it says here we've given 2 numbers the value 420 and 119. The equal sign here doesn't mean that we're checking like in algebra class. This is called an assignment. So the right side is now assigned to what's on the left. Now we got a formula here. So look at this line. It says we're going to take the value C and we are going to add A and B together. And then we're going to right line the value of C. And then we're going to do a read key, which is just wait for the key to be pressed. So let's see what happens. I'm going to press start and run the program. Okay, so the program started and I got 539 as the value. Let's see if that makes sense. So 420 plus 119, that's probably correct. And now it says the last instruction is read key, so if on my computer I just press the space bar or anything, it will close the program because it reached the end of the line. So experiment with this. So if you want to take a negative number and add it to a positive number and run it, you should get a result. You can do anything you want as long as it's an integer. As soon as you decide that you want to put in a decimal point like that, we're going to have a problem. Do you see how it says here? We've got an error, it's redlined, you might call it, and then a message that pops up that says, I cannot implicitly convert type double to int. An explicit conversion exists. Are you missing a cast? Isn't that nice how computers just give you all these words, and all that meant was, hey, you've got an integer letter B, and you've told it to assign it a decimal number where you've got this 0.88. So that's really in English what that means. So I'm just going to go back and fix that so it's no longer a decimal number. It's now just an integer. So experiment with that. Okay, let's go back into our code and let's go down and see what else we want to create. So we've got a more complex piece of code up here, and I'm going to copy and paste it so we don't have to type it all. Now you notice I'm going to copy starting from this line here. I don't want to replace main, and I'm going to stop before I get to the end because I want to keep those brackets. So let's just select everything right up to the first line where it says the green text. So I'm going to right click and copy, and now I'm going to switch back into Visual Studio. So the code here is going to replace everything that's been typed already. So I'm going to delete all that and paste. Now make sure that all of your brackets line up. You can see I have a red line that says I got 1 extra bracket. So I probably, if I counted the number of closed brackets to the number of open brackets, there would be a problem. So it looks like I have 1, 2, 3 to open, and I get to the end and I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so I'm going to delete one of them. And now I've got balancing brackets. You can see the vertical line is kind of a dotted line. It's supposed to help you guide to where the open and close part happens. So that's a common error in coding if you don't balance those correctly. Let's get a little more space here and see what's going to happen. So we have two variables, one called num1, another one called num2. And I could put them on separate lines. They don't have to be on the same line. And those numbers start off at 0. So we've declared the type of the number and then its value. What's going to happen next? It says we're going to print some messages. Num1 is going to convert, it says. We're going to get a value from the user. We're going to type in a value. And we are going to get the read line. Now, they are putting this command, readline, inside of parentheses. So you can start to see this is called nesting different commands. So readline is going to happen first, and then we're going to do this conversion, which is going to convert this to an integer of type 32. So that's a specific kind of integer, and it's going to assign it to num1. So all of that is like 3 pieces. We got a readline, a conversion, and then an assignment. And then we're going to do the same thing for num2. We're going to ask then, choose a letter. So there's some printing going on. We're going to then use something called a switch. Okay, this is getting complex. Let's just see how the program works, and then we'll come back and see what switch is all about. So we're introducing a lot of different things here in an early tutorial. Well, you got to learn it sometime, so you might as well see it now. Hey, nice, our program's running. It says type a number and press enter. So let's see, I'm going to type in 33, another number, let's try 90. And it says, what are you going to do next? You're going to add them. Let's try A for add. And the result shows me 123. Seems to work. Okay, let's run it again. Okay, I'm going to type another number. Let's say 150. This time I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to type the letter S, and now it tells me that it's a subtraction problem. So it seems to work. Now, how does this work? Let's see what the code says down here. So when we get to this line called switch, it's a little bit odd. What's going on? It says, switch says, I'm going to expect a value from readline, one of the letters, and I'm going to expect 4 different cases. So if the case for the letter A is typed, I'm going to do the code right here. And then I'm going to do something called a break. A break will say, stop doing switch. It'll break out of this loop. So this entire thing is this switch section. When I get to break, it says I'll go skip out of that and I'll keep going. So my cases are different. So I could have a case A, case S, case M, or D. And when it's all done, I'll get different results. So in future programming, we'll go through some of these details, but you can see we've got ourselves a calculator application. Now we're going to find a problem here, is that the result is going to have some division issues. So we're using integers. Let's see what integer division does. All right, I'm going to ask you for some actual math skills. So I'm going to put in a 20. So I'm going to type in the word 20 and then a 3. Now what is 20 divided by 3? I'm going to try and find out. Let's type in D. 20 divided by 3 is 6. Is that accurate? I know that 6 times 3 is 18. So where did the fraction part go, or where's the remainder? Well, since we're working with division in integers, the computer just ignored the remainder. Isn't that interesting? So maybe integers isn't exactly what we want to work with, because division and integers don't always go well together. So let's go back into the tutorial and scroll down some more and see what else they say. So let's go to this section here called Add Decimals. What they want to do is make the decimals actually work correctly. And they tell you to go search and replace. I think that's a little confusing, so let's just do it manually. So I'm going to switch back into the code here that we were typing, and I scroll to the top. Now right at the beginning, where it says int, I can change that right now to something called a decimal, or a float, or a double. All 3 of those are words that would work fine. So since decimals make sense to me, I'm going to use the word decimal here. Decimal. Let's try that, if I can spell. So I'm going to change int to decimal as well for this guy. So now they're both decimals, and let's run the program again and see if we have different results. Okay, so I'm going to try the same question. I'm going to say 20 and 3 and type D for divide. And now you can see the results are 6.6666667. That's a lot of sixes. Very precise. I'm going to change this to one other. Instead of decimal, I'm going to put in the word float. So float stands for floating point numbers, and that's a computer science term that means that it uses decimals as well. However, floats are reusing less of the computer's memory, so I think the precision will be less. There'll be not as many decimal points. So let's try 20 divided by 3 and type D. And you can see that the number of sixes now only goes out to maybe the 6th or 7th place. And so the float is a shorter form of a decimal number. So decimals are super precise and floats are less precise. Anyway, that's something that's, they're both accomplishing the same thing, but with less precision on one of them. Okay, so there we got ourselves an app. Now we have other problems. It says, what happens if we try to divide by 0? It says we're going to come up with some problems there. Let's see what happens. So let's run the app and divide by 0 and see what happens. I'm going to run it again. So I'm going to say 20 and 0 and type D. And it says here, infinite. Didn't work very well. Now let's go back into the code, the tutorial, and we didn't actually get an error like they showed. Mine actually gave me an infinity sign. So maybe my decimal points or something is a little different than theirs. But anyway, we didn't get the result we wanted. So they give a recommendation. They said, let's add a question to see if we can check to see if the user is giving us a 0 or not. So I'm going to select some of the code here. And let's see, that looks like enough of it. Let's copy that. And we're going to replace some code in our program. Okay, so now let's go and put this in somewhere. So the division part here, where it's got this line called D, I'm going to select these and delete them and then paste. So we're going to check to see when we do division, we're going to check to see if they entered a 0. So if the user entered num2 equals 0, then we want to ask them for a different number. So the while loop, this is called, from this bracket to this bracket will repeat until they put a different number in. So while the number is 0, keep doing this loop. And it says please enter a non-zero divisor, and then we'll come up with an answer. So let's see if that works any differently. So we've got a while loop in our program. So I'm going to type in the same idea. I'm going to put in 20 and then type in a 0. And this time I'm going to type in D and it says, sorry, please enter a non-zero. I'm going to put in 0. 0. Now it's hard to argue with a computer because the while loop says keep repeating this until the number is not 0. Okay, so as long as I keep putting in 0, I get this answer. I'm going to put in a number like 9. And now it says, I'll give you an answer. So your computer will loop forever. This while loop will never stop until the 0 is cleared. Okay, so we've reached, I think, the bottom of the page now. So if you want to check to see if you got all the code right, they put in a section you can copy this entire program and then run it again. So there you got it. You got yourself the app and the complete code and your first program that actually does something, so a calculator app. It's a good thing to study and learn from, and then of course we're going to move on in the next video and work on a Windows Forms app, so it'll be a little bit more graphical and a little less text.